Oh, hello world. Top of the morn to you. It's not quite 8 a.m. here on the 25th of June. And monsoon season is coming here in South Korea. So I'm going to try and get my hike in and this chat in before there's an 80% chance of rain. Might get rained on, but that just means I'll have to dance. But today I made my list yesterday and had a debate with myself on which one to start with, which of the 77 topics. And I guess if you lie down on a couch with a psychiatrist, they're going to first ask about your childhood. So I've seen a lot of videos about Generation X, some of them very funny, many of them very true. So I'm going to start way back when, where it all began, and I'm going to take this lower path. I'm not going to go to the top in case it does start raining. At least there's shelter by the trees, bamboo, and it's flat. This mat is made of coconut husk, so it's very soft on your feet. Barefoot is the way to go if you can. You just have to basically make sure you look where you're going, and that's an important thing. Look where you're going. But so let's begin. It all started for Stevie back in 1971, September the 9th. I was born to Jim and Jeanette Walker in Wichita, Kansas. And I was the 9th child. So I was born on the 9th day of the 9th month and the 9th child. I have 5 older sisters and 3 older brothers. And if you're into numerology, I guess number 9 would be a lucky number for me. I was also born 6 pounds 12 ounces, which if you add those numbers up, that's 9. And I was born at 8:46 a.m. almost 9 a.m. But if you add up the 6 and the 4, that's a 1 or a 10. 1 plus 8, that's another number 9. So I guess I've always kind of had a certain something special in my heart for number 9. But my family, my father was actually in the Korean War. He was drafted into the war, served for a year here, and he was a chaplain's assistant. He originally was, I think, a water-cooled machine gun carrying grunt. But before the war, he went into seminary school. He wanted to be a priest, but he couldn't deal with the Latin. So he dropped out of seminary school, and Uncle Sam ended up drafting him in to come to the Korean conflict. And he met a guy who also was in the seminary with him, who was leaving Korea, and he was a chaplain's assistant, so my dad took his place. And in that instance, it probably, I would say most definitely saved his life, and it allowed 9 children to be born under his name. So you never know really what little events can do in the future. I guess that might be called the butterfly effect, I don't know, but after the war he worked as an appliance repairman, and then in the 80s he started his own small appliance repair shop, worked for himself, and made enough. we weren't rich by any stretch of the imagination, but I never knew it. It was only until later that my siblings were like, yeah, we were pretty poor there, Stephen. You don't realize how poor we were. But as a young kid growing up in that environment on the west end of Wichita, Kansas, this shirt I'm wearing right here is the flag of Wichita, by the way. So we grew up on the west end, and in my mind it was pretty idyllic. So my dad, being a repairman, he always had tools around the house, boxes that appliances would come in. I would take those boxes and turn them into all different types of things. I had a very wild, unimpeded imagination. Most definitely a right-brained dude. Still am. But my mom, so imagine having 9 children. She was a housewife. She started teaching a religion class when I was in midway through grade school, and was actually my religion teacher for 1 year. Can you imagine having your mom be your religion teacher and you're trying to be cool? But my mom wore many different hats. She was a seamstress. She would make many of our clothes, not all, but many. She was a cook. She did make all of our own home-cooked meals, especially dinner. She was a doctor, a nurse, a counselor. She did it all. And I never really saw her complain. She wasn't a drinker or a smoker. Family was first. Well, I would say God was first and family was a close second. So growing up in the early 70s as Generation X, the question is, among the Generation X, Y, Z, and the newest generation, I guess, is Alpha, I don't know, which one was best? Then you had the baby boomers as well, 50s, 60s. But as a Generation Xer, I'm gonna have to argue that our generation was pretty damn good. Growing up in a home on the west end of Wichita, 9 children, 1 phone hanging in the kitchen. We would all race to get it, never knowing who it was on the other end. And if it was for you, obviously there was not going to be any privacy. No privacy. The birds are singing, so hopefully that means that there's not going to be rain for a little while. No privacy. One television. The television was in the living room. 3 channels, ABC, NBC, CBS. No Fox, no cable. That would come later. Not a lot of choices, so I guess less choice to fight over on what program to watch. Books. We had a lot of books. I had a lot of books to sort through from my siblings. Children's books, comic books. But in particular, we had a full shelf of Encyclopedia Britannicas and world books. Each year, we would receive a new world book, and if the information wasn't in that book, it didn't exist, as far as I knew. World events from every year, important people, quote unquote important. But it was the resource that I would use for making the book reports and whatnot in school. As I said, my mom was a very good cook, so we would gather around the large dinner table. There were no phones, no TV was on. We wouldn't answer the phone. If it did ring, we would say grace before and after dinner together. And as we ate, we would talk. Imagine that. Talking while sharing a meal with your family. Pretty crazy, I know. So, 9 children, pets. We had a zoo. As I said, we lived on the West End, so we kind of lived near, it was called Eberly Farms. There was land across the road from us. We lived in a small neighborhood, maybe about 20 houses, new development, I guess. But so we had a yard, and we had cats, and those cats had kittens. We had dogs. Those dogs had puppies, and then those puppies had puppies later on. One of my brothers had a raccoon. Another brother found a possum, a little baby possum that had survived a car accident his mom was killed in. Hamsters, gerbils, snakes, toads, frogs. And after a good rain, when the ditch that separated the road from our yard filled up with water, that was the time to go out barefoot, check for tadpoles, crawdads, and occasional turtle somehow would make it there. Luckily didn't get any toes bitten off, but lightning bugs, catching them in jars, June bugs. June bugs would always fly up onto the porch after the light, in search of the light, and our old gray Persian cat Yum Yum would wait and wait till they knocked themselves out and then eat them. entertainment. Summertime entertainment in the mid-70s, Wichita, Kansas. What else? As I got a little bit older, the neighborhood I was in, as I said, maybe about 20 houses. 3 or 4 of those houses had children about the same age as me. Some were older, but 3 families in particular. So we had a small little group of people that we would get together and be outside all of the time, especially summertime when there was no school. But morning time, hey, eat breakfast. All right, time to go see if Corey can play, or if Joy or Thea or Jason could come outside and find something to do. And we always did, because there were many trees to climb, build forts, tree houses as we got a little bit older. But even being younger, when just climbing a tree was a feat that was well accomplished. Certain big mimosa trees kind of had these big branches that you could walk out on. One of those trees became a ship. It had a mast that went up. It had the bow. It had the captain's bunk even in the back. Or that same ship became a rocket ship. The imagination was endless. Each day was different. I have some notes just to keep me kind of focused. I want to work on about a 30-minute, maybe a little touch more, but I don't want to keep these much longer than 30 as I walk through spider webs. But the mountain here, this is a very nice, well-kept trail. And I don't see a lot of young Koreans out here hiking. They're generally in their, anywhere from their 40s, I would say, up to even in their 70s. Koreans like to hike. And when they hike, they dress like they're going to Everest, K2. They've got on the jackets, the hats, the hiking poles, the high-end boots, the backpacks, the camel, the water. They're dressed to the nines. Me, I prefer a pair of shorts, a t-shirt, a hat until I get my hair cut, and if possible, no shoes. Speaking of crawdads, as I stopped to take my moment of zen, look at who showed up on my toe. This is what we would call a crawdad in Kansas. That is amazing. Thanks, dude. That's the first crawdad I've seen in Korea. Whoa, I almost fell in. That is why you go into the mountain and take a hike and stop just for a little bit. Just like when you go scuba diving, you stop at one place. You don't just keep swimming around. When you stop at one place and start taking a real close look at something, you will see the life that exists there. And it's everywhere. That's amazing. I have never seen a crawdad in Korea. And I just talked about a crawdad. Hallelujah. All right. I don't know if that was a synchronicity. Is that what you call a synchronicity? That was amazing. All right, anyways. So let me get back to my notes. Childhood, so bicycles. When you got old enough to ride a bike, I remember learning how to ride a bike. It wasn't mine. It was just this big, huge green thing with wheels that came up to my chest. My brother taught me how to ride it. And let's just say many skinned knees. Later, I was able to propel myself down the sand road, and that opened up a whole new world of freedom to me. And then one birthday comes along and I get my own bike. It was a Huffy, cheap. It wasn't the cool mongoose that my neighborhood friend had. He only had him and his sister in his family, so they were more well off than we were, let's just say that. My dad was loving, but he was strict. I remember coming home one day after visiting Corey's house. He had the new Bionic Man doll. You could open his chest and see his heart and all that kind of stuff. The muscles or mechanics in his arm, his legs, whatever. Is that what you call predictive programming? That was back in the early 80s. Hey, look, a bionic man. Maybe one day you too can become a bionic man. Bionic technology in your eyeball, your arms, your legs, even your mind. But at the time, I thought that was cool. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. So I came home, walked into the kitchen, told my dad about it, and he said, no, you can stop thinking about it now. You're not gonna get it. And so I forgot about it. Didn't cry about it, I don't think. May have cried into my pillow that night, but I don't remember. I definitely wouldn't have carried on in front of him. And one more thing about my dad. There's the good cop, bad cop thing, right? Mom was generally the good cop. You could go to her for the really bad news, because as you got older, you knew that she wouldn't be able to really whip your ass. Not that she ever did, but she had the feminine traits where you could talk to her about more things than dad. But as I got older, and I have a story to tell about this, that while being short, quick to anger, the anger also would subside just as quickly. And I got that trait from him. It was over, and it was never brought up again, ever. So anyways, getting back to the bikes. Once I got my own bike, obviously the baseball cards in the spokes to make the engine sounds. Yeah, basically it just allowed you to start exploring the neighborhood and beyond. Where I grew up, again, it was on the west end, countryside, a lot of farmland around. We could ride for miles, few cars, but most definitely never had a thought of anyone abducting us or even hitting us in the car. It was a possibility, I'm sure, but never happened. So imagination was a very key part of my childhood. I loved to draw, paint when possible, but drawing was a passion. As I said, I'm very right-brained. Creating things, creating characters, making my own masks and outfits from paper. Good times. Simple times. Piece of paper, some crayons, some tape. Look, I'm a squirrel. Today I'm a skunk. Hey, but guess what? I don't want to be a skunk forever. I changed. Childhood dreams, other than being a skunk, sport was very important, and I loved American football, so I wanted to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers one day. So I played through high school, grade school and high school football, but I never got large enough or fast enough. I was fast. I was always the fastest in my class, all the way through high school. But not that elite type of fast. Religion plays into the second dream that I had. I also love trucks, semis in particular, the big rigs. And so the Hot Wheels, we would have a box of Hot Wheels, a lot of hand-me-downs from the brothers above me. Go out into the sandbox, create our own roads, little towns. But I had to, with religion, we would go to Sunday Mass every Sunday without missing a beat. My dad would actually do readings and give out Eucharist. As I said, he was in a seminary, so God and his faith played a huge role in his life all the way through until his death. And so going to Mass, I became an altar boy Sundays. An altar boy is where you'd get dressed in the red and white cassock, I think is what it was called, kind of a robe with a white top. You'd assist the priest with saying the Mass, ringing the bell, doing the incense, holding the plate under everybody's tongue when they accepted the host during communion. I've seen a lot of tongues in my day, especially when I was hitting puberty and I got to hold the plate underneath a few select girls I had the hots for. It's like, ooh, there's her tongue. Hey, you're in church, you can't think about those things. But I did. I grew up I went to grade school in a small town outside of Wichita. It's called St. Mark's. Don't know if you can see this. Maybe not. That is a fairly large spider web. But St. Mark's had a beautiful church, very small town. It had an elementary school, grades kindergarten through 8th. And so my whole family basically went there. The teachers knew us. Oh, you're Ted's, you're Linda, you're Mary, you're Cindy's younger brother. The Walker clan, they all knew us. But oddly enough, although we had 9, there were a few other families that had even more. Speaking of more, it was the Moores, M-O-H-R. The Moore family, I had I think 13. So I'll let you guess our lineage. Yes, we were Catholic, and Walker, I think, is English, but on my dad's side, Irish and Austrian and English. My mom's side, mostly German, European descent, Catholic. So St. Mark's was a German-Irish community. The majority of people were Catholic, and the majority were German and Irish back then, descent. I only remember one black family that moved in for, it was during my 8th grade year. Tammy was her name in my class, and then her younger brother. Can't remember his name, but he was fast. There was no hatred, there was just competition, actually. So at recess we would have races. Oh my gosh, who's gonna win this race? It's coming up after lunch, outside at recess. I can't remember who won. Maybe that's selective memory. Let's see. So my dream, being Catholic, serving as an altar boy, loving trucks, I thought, hey, I'm gonna buy myself a big semi with a big long bed, trailer, and I'm gonna drive around the country, be a priest, and have mass in the back of my truck. Not a bad idea. Wonder if anybody does that. Traveling church. It's kind of like what my dad did here in Korea, actually, as a chaplain's assistant. He would drive a Jeep behind the front line, and he would set up mass on the hood of the Jeep for the priest. And he would also assist with the Eucharist. And then he would tear everything down after they'd go have the mass on the behind the front line, and then they'd drive to another spot and do it all over again. But as I got older, religion started to fade a bit. And but real quick about religion, so Monday through Friday, the Catholic kids would have to get up an hour earlier, get on the big bus an hour earlier than the non-religious kids. And there were some, but not many. Count them on one hand. And so we would get to church. We'd go to church for 30 minutes Monday through Friday, and then we'd go to a religion class for 30 minutes. And then we would walk to school, which is about, I don't know, 200-300 yards away. Monday through Friday, and then Sundays, that was a family church-going day. And afterwards, my dad would always make a big breakfast. My mom usually did the cooking, but my dad would do the breakfast at the end of the week on Sundays. Hand-me-downs. I touched a little bit on that. Hot Wheels and different things like that. Clothes. I got a lot of hand-me-downs from my brothers. And again, I thought it was cool because they had the high school, what we call now is vintage, and people pay good money for vintage clothing, but back then it was hand-me-downs. As long as they weren't socks or underwear, I could care less. I was happy to receive shirts with, you know, logos of schools that I'm going to be attending, hats, toys, musical instruments. I played my brother's trombone in grade school and in high school jazz band for a year. But Hand-me-downs were no big thing. It was a way to save money for my parents. Music, another hand-me-down or passed down. Having 8 older siblings, they had fantastic albums. Dan Fogelberg, Brad, ABBA, Queen, and then the Beatles. So I got the red and the blue album from my brother back when he said, hey, they're just becoming drug addicts now. I'm like, I'll take it. I'll take those LPs from you, please. I was a Beatlemaniac as a kid. Started learning how to play guitar. I bought my first guitar senior year in high school. But music played a huge part in my life, as it does, I think, for a lot of people. You know, you can relate music to your life's events, life story. What else? So you went from the LP to the 8-track to the cassette tape, and that was a game changer, because then you could sit by the radio and wait to hit record when you knew one of your favorite songs was about to be played. Casey Kasem, Top 40, Wolfman Jack, Where It's At. Then you'd make your own collection of songs. Give it to your sweetheart if you had one. Education. So as I said, German-Irish education. St. Mark's was the elementary school. The teachers knew us. It was one room, one teacher for 1 year. You have the math, the science, the art. Now you go to music class, that'd be a different teacher generally, but social studies. And then PE. Loved PE. Get out of the desk. All of us probably had ADHD or whatever they call it, attention deficit disorder. If we grew up now as we were then, I think that's just called being a kid. Honestly, I don't think it's anything different, other than maybe the diet has definitely changed. So maybe there is a more serious thing going on with children and their ability to sit still, concentrate. Technology also, obviously, clicking through things every 30 seconds, not good for attention. But the community around St. Mark's and then Andale, where I went to high school, farming, construction, working with their hands, and so hardworking people demanded respect and gave respect, and they loved sport, football in particular. And if you Google Andale these days, you will see that their football program is the best in state. It has been for the past decade. And it always has had a very strong tradition. It's raining now, so my paper's getting wet. I'm gonna have to rush through the rest of these and call it a day. PE and then recess. The merry-go-round, the thing that spins around and you can basically fly off and break a collarbone. Rusty swing sets, jungle gyms made from metal, 10 foot out in the air, falling, cutting yourself, rubbing some dirt on it, moving on. Smear the fill in the blank, in which also called dodgeball. That was fun to play. And one quick thing about education, especially early education. I think it was Albert Einstein who said every child is a genius until they go to school. There was a NASA-backed study, and the guy's name was Dr. George Land. And this study tested 1,600 children on creative thinking, starting at the ages of 4, from 4 to 5. And so this says the results were mind-blowing. 98% of them scored at genius level in creativity. And this reminds me of a meme that I've seen where this little plant is being guided into the classroom, and with mom, and he looks into the classroom, and all the children look exactly the same. They've been shaved, trimmed down. I can't remember if they're 2x4s. I'll show you the meme, but and the teacher is an axe. And as a teacher, I've been teaching for over close to 25 years. That strikes deep. I'm gonna turn. It is raining now. I may dance for you later if you keep tuned in, but we'll head back to the car and I'll finish this. So, sport, as I said, another interesting topic to talk about in the future is athletics versus academics. Here in South Korea, academics is king, and sport is rarely. They don't have intramural, they don't play other schools, they don't have baseball, basketball, football, wrestling, that kind of thing. They do have soccer clubs. Korea does have professional baseball. I think they've got like 8 teams and they play each other 50 times a season. I don't know. I don't really watch it anymore, but if you excel at something here in Korea, I think you're kind of pigeonholed into this, and this is what you're going to do. But academics, we'll talk about that more at a different date and time if you're interested. But in my opinion, sport is very important. Teaches social skills, leadership, how to work well with others, teamwork, endurance, trust, coordination. And when I played football, ran track, and wrestled 3 sports in a year, my grades were the best ever. Why? Because you don't have time to fuck off. You're too tired. You go to school, you go to practice, you come home, you eat, you study, you do your homework, you go to sleep, get up and do it all over again. Parents, let your children play sport. And it also creates bonds that last a lifetime. Truly. I remember 8th grade, finishing football practice. A buddy of mine, we lived about a mile away. Him and another classmate, they lived in the same addition, and I lived in a mile farther down the road. But his dad would come pick us up after practice. Now football is in the autumn, looking at September, October, riding in the back of an El Camino after being all sweaty And his dad was a bit of a drinker. He always had a bottle of peach schnapps, so he'd always pass it through the back window. We never told anyone. 안녕하세요. Koreans are friendly. Not really. Some are, but generally they aren't. Look, a foreigner. Hey, look, another Korean. Let's see. 4 seasons. So football was in the autumn. Winter time. Growing up in the 70s. I remember larger snowstorms, like huge drifts, school being closed. And then having to bundle up with, we didn't have the finest North Face gear. Long underwear, 3 pairs of socks, sweatpants, and then jeans over the top of the sweatpants. Plastic bread bags over the feet. Shove the feet into the boots or the shoes, whatever you had. And then obviously your main coat, your hat. If you've ever seen A Christmas Story, Peter's little brother, when his mom's getting the little brother ready to go to school, that was that movie is a great depiction of what life was like. Now that took place in the 50s, I think, or 60s, but a lot of it carried through into the 70s, early 80s. Wintertime. Snowmen, igloos, Christmas, best time of the year. Decorating the tree. Sleeping under the tree, waiting for Santa Claus. And one day finding, I can't even remember, we never had Nintendo, we didn't have Atari. My dad always had like the knockoff stuff because he always went to appliance shops and they had the cheap stuff. So I think our game console was Odyssey, and it sucked, but it was good because I didn't play it, which means I went outside and I played. I ran, I jumped, I played sport. Summertime, well, spring, obviously, spring. Spring was beautiful, new life, new bugs, new reptiles, everything new. And then the summer. Summer was the best. Get back on the bikes. There was a private swimming pool called the Coleman Club about 2 hours. No, gee, why am I talking hours? 2 miles. I haven't said mile in a long time. It's all kilometer over here. So 2 miles away. And thanks to one of my older brothers who knew the Pattersons who ran the pool. Him and his friend used to go swimming there, and then by default, grandfathered into the clause, I started tagging along, and when they moved on, got jobs, I was able to take one guest. And there was high dive, low dive. Imagine that, a high dive, climbing up, learning to jump, dive, do a flip, a 1.5. But my favorite was the can opener, trying to get Mona, the lifeguard, wet. Summertime. Great music on the radio as well. Not a lot of people during the weekday. We couldn't go swimming on the weekends because that was the Coleman Club members that would go in and have barbecues and whatnot. But Monday through Friday, summertime, great music. John Lennon blasting on the loudspeaker, Jerry Rafferty. Memories. Great times. Driving. My first car was a 1972 Chevelle. It was a Malibu, but it looked like an SS. And I'll show you a picture of it. But one of my brothers helped find it for me. And he was a mechanic, so he helped me get it on the road. And my senior year in high school, I was driving that puppy around. And thought I was hot shit. Captain of the football team. Driving a 1972 SS Chevelle. And after football season was finished, I started working part-time jobs. First one was at a grocery store, so started making my own money. I started driving actually when I was 14 years old. Got my learner's permit, and this is what happens when you live in a farming community. Because all the kids drive the machinery from 10 to 11 years old. So the learner's permit, not a problem. I could drive to school, and I could drive to work legally. Drinking. Also my senior year, maybe junior. Not so much okay. 8th grade year, my buddy's dad gave us the schnapps, okay. Wet the whistle. By the time senior year rolled around and football was no longer going to be part of my future story, there's not a lot to do in western Kansas, West Wichita, central Kansas. It's flat, no oceans, no mountains, a lot of fields and some lakes. So you'd get a phone call or talk at school, where's the party at? It's either going to be a kegger out in, I don't know, so-and-so's field, or at their cabin, or out at the lake, or a house party if the parents are gone. So booze. I became well acquainted with booze in high school, and that carried all the way through college. But we're getting out of Generation X. So I'm gonna end this here shortly. But part-time jobs, growing up, making your own money, starting your own independence, bag boy, cashier, helped build a golf course 3 summers in a row when I was going to college. So the 1970s, the question is, Generation X really, was it better? Was it better than now? Was it better than the 90s or the 2000s or the 2010s? I would have to say yes. And I'll give you the reasons why, and then we'll end this. There were many problems in the 1970s. It was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Vietnam War was finishing. Watergate and Nixon. Nixon terminated his presidency in the 70s. AIDS, that was a biggie. Hey, guess what? If you kiss someone, you touch someone wrong, you're gonna die. Whew. As a Catholic kid, that kept me away from premarital sex for a good number of years, I'll tell you that. That'd be a tough one to tell Dad. The Gulf War. Actually, I'm going to tell you this one story about my dad now that before I end this. So this is the difference between my dad and my mom. He worked a lot. I didn't see him a lot as a kid. I'd be in sleep when he came home from work. He'd be gone at work when I would wake up and go to school. I'd see him on Sundays. Long story short, it was I was in high school. I think maybe my junior year. I met some friends, and there was a Wichita River Fest going on downtown, so we got a case of beer. We were probably, I don't know, maybe 17 years old. Case of beer in the trunk, 4 of us in the car, 4 of us. And just right when we set out from Colwich, which is about probably 5 to 10 miles from downtown where we were heading, woo! Cop, the local cop, pulls us over on the outskirts of Colwich. We had open container, not drunk yet, but planning on it. The cop pulls us over, shines the light, and says, "Okay, I know you, I know you, I know you, and I know you. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna confiscate this cooler of beer in your trunk. You're gonna pour those out, and then each of you are gonna go home right now and have a parent call me. And if they do, then I will not write any ticket." That was an easy decision. So going home, I didn't know who I was gonna see first, mom or dad, and I'm kind of thinking it's gonna be easier to break it to mom, because now I'm a big, strong, athletic dude. She doesn't scare me physically. My dad still scares me to this day. Big forearms, blue collar worker, and he had that look. You know the look. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But he had the look. My dad never touched me once. Never hit me, never spanked me. I think I remember being spanked once in church. That was it, by my mom. But I get home, and my mom's not home, so it's my dad. And so I walk in, he's sitting on the couch watching TV, and he's like, "You're home early?" And yep. I said, "Well, I have something to tell you." He's like, "Yeah." And I said, I told him the story, and I said, "Here's the phone number, you have to give this guy a call." Takes the number, goes into the kitchen, because we still didn't have another phone, makes the phone call, which is 2 rooms away from where I'm sitting in the living room. I can hear it. And I'm sitting on the couch watching the news, wondering what the news was going to be for my ass. He hangs up the phone, walks into the living room, sits down, and he says, "Don't do it. Don't do that again. And don't tell your mother." So I looked at him, went over in my head that I'm not gonna get beat. "Don't do that again, and don't tell mom." He said, "That's right, because you'll never hear the end of it." And I said, "Okay." And then I sat on the sofa. My dad was in his chair, and we ended up watching David Letterman, and then I went to bed. And I never told my mom, and I never heard about it from him ever again. Respect beyond words. So to round this thing up, Generation X, yes, it was better. because we didn't have the cell phone, we didn't have computers. Everyone has family. Some of your families are fantastic, others maybe not so great. But at least back in the day, you weren't forced to, but if you wanted any type of civil relationship, communication was key. Working things out, not just hiding into your phone, into the black mirror. So as we get older, the world's getting smaller. And one more thing that happened in the 80s was CNN. Ted Turner, CNN was cable, is, I don't know, cable still exists, I have no idea, satellite. But it was, can't remember the year, I think it was 1980. CNN became a 24-hour cable news station, which means that they've got to create enough content for people to watch and pay for their advertising. And I'm going to go into news in another episode, but I'd just like to say that that event brought people inward into watching what was going on rather than creating their own reality. More viewership, more hours sitting on your ass watching things. The health deteriorates, the mental health deteriorates, and the connection between people also deteriorates. That's a fact. So yes, the 1970s, early 80s, I would say, rules. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for listening. This is about a 40-minute, maybe a little bit longer video. But guess where I am? Guess where I'm going to end it? This is going to be my moment of Zen. And this is also where I met my new friend. So I'm going to go see if I can find him again. And until the next time, I hope everyone, if you have a great story to tell, if you're Generation X, Y, or Z, or A, give me your opinion on why you think that your generation is the best. Comparisons are odious. They don't really mean anything. It's really just the memories that you have. Just share a good memory. We don't have to argue about it. But it's kind of fun to argue sometimes, you have to admit it. Share your story, share your thought. And until next time, peace out.